All right, thank you, Sean. It is Monday, August 7th, 7:30, and I call the meeting of the Brainerd City Council to order. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Chesak. Here. O'Day. Here. Stunek.
Here.
Terry. Here. Stengline.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Bevins.
Here.
And Bedeau.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we're off.
All right, item 4 is an approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by O'Day, second by Stunek. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 5 is the consent calendar, notice to the public. All matters listed are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call. Is there a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
So moved.
Motion, Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Stengline. Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Chesak.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
Stengline.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes. That motion is adopted. We have no presentations this evening? Nope, just on the agenda as kind of a hanger. Got it. Item 7 is council committee report. 7A is Safety and Public Works Committee Chairman Mike O'Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had 10 items tonight, first of which was the direction on active code enforcement cases. We had 3 different cases, really kind of 4 different cases. And motion coming out of committee was to go along with staff's recommendation. Note that the recommendations had 3 options for 1201 Norwood Street. The new recommendation after some changes, after some things got cleaned up, was just to abate the garbage on the property. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by O'Day, a second by Chesak. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next item was event application for the BHS Homecoming 5K. And motion coming out of committee was to approve the attached application under the conditions as described in the event application. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by O'Day, a second by Stengline. Any discussion? Mr. Chair?
Say it's on September 23rd, 2023, using our trails and Kiwanis and Rotary for the most part. No street closures are necessary.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please proceed.
All right, Mr. President, here's the one everybody's been waiting for quite a while, about 2 years. We have the results back for numbers 1, 2, and 3 for our Name a Truck contest for our newest snowplow. Number 1 was Plow Bunyan. Number 2, Snow Be Gone Kenobi. And number 3 is Blade, the Blue Ox. Motion coming out of committee was to go ahead with the number 1 recommendation of Plow Bunyan, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Chesak. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of Plow Bunyan, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can't believe there wasn't more controversy on that one. All right. Number 4 is approval of the transit lease agreement. Motion coming out of committee was to go along with staff's recommendation to increase lease rent by $40 per month. Total, let me see, so we're up to $700 per month, active January 1st, 2024, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Stengline. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next was the change orders for, change orders 3, 4, and 5 for the Harrison Safe Routes to School project. Mr. Dean walked us through a few different small changes that we had. Nothing major, kind of a lot to do with what we had last time with some difficulties with the grading that we had to change. So we are now, with this change order of a total of $12,638 with all 3 of them, we are sitting at $492,164 $1,000,000.24, which is still under our $500,000 grant money limit. So motion coming out of committee was to go ahead and approve those 3 change orders, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Chesak. Any discussion? Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Number 6 was the letter of support to adopt the resolution Trunk Highway 210 MPDG grant. Motion coming out of committee was to approve the letter of support and adopt the resolution supporting MnDOT's MPDG grant application, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by O'Day, second by Stingline. Any discussion?
Do you want to know what it is?
Sure.
Okay. It's the Multimodal Projects Discretionary Grant Rural Surface Transportation Grant.
Good. Second.
Well said.
Thank you.
Very informational.
Any further discussion? Jesse, do we need to approve the letter of support and then do the resolution? Are they 2 separate things, or can we do it all with one?
I think just
Roll
one would
call.
be good.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the letter of support and adopt the resolution. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Chesak.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Terry. Stingline.
Yes.
Johnson. And Bevins.
Yes, that resolution and letter of support is adopted. Please proceed, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. This next item is agreement with MnDOT for engineering services on Trunk Highway 371B/Willow Street Roundabout. Motion coming out of committee was to recommend approval of the joint powers contract with MnDOT as presented, and I so move.
Motion by O'Day, is there a
Second.
second? Second by Stengline, any discussion? Mr. Chair.
So this is the roundabout, obviously on Willow and South Sixth Street, potentially and hopefully done in 2025 before we have our big 210 project. We want to have that opened up on South Sixth Street. This is just saying that MnDOT will cover their half, we will cover our half, up to this $393,994.50, which they're estimating.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Mayor.
For those of you following along at home, this is $200,000 for engineering on something that we asked to have done when the road was done the first time.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, Mr. Mayor, and I'll ask it of Mr. Chair. We have any idea how much more this is going to cost us to do it 3 years after the road was tore up? I mean, I got to believe at least mobilization, at the very minimum mobilization and inflation, which we all know, and we can ask the mayor what a can of beer costs these days. So it's expensive. I can't imagine engineering's gone down.
Bud Light has.
I mean, it would be kind of nice to ask, I mean, this isn't like 20 years after the event. The tar just dried. So if we could kind of come up with, I mean,
When we applied for the HSIP grant, we were implying a project construction cost of about $2 million, assuming that MnDOT was covering about 50% of that.
2 million just for the roundabout.
Correct.
Any idea what it cost when the road was tore up? None.
600,000.
Yeah, $12.
I couldn't tell you that right off.
I know,
Sorry.
just to depress me. Okay, I don't know if we voted yet, so let's vote to approve the MnDOT agreement engineering services on Trunk Highway 371 business. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next one is the approval of LHB's proposal for engineering services for the historic water tower, and recommendation and motion coming out of committee was to recommend the approval of the LHB proposal in the amount of $14,000, and I so move.
Motion by O'Day, second by Chesak. Any discussion? Mr. Chair.
So if we remember the last phase of the water tower, when we put on the roof, the stairs and the windows were supposed to be included in that phase of the project. The costs got a little higher than we anticipated. We pulled back on the stairs and the windows. This is just to move forward on a design and engineering services for just the stairs and the windows, which, now that I think about it, shouldn't we already have those engineered?
They were in the original plans, so it just needs to be repackaged for those two parts of the project, but the additional inclusion of the electrical work.
That's right, and the electrical tape that's going to keep our,
Electrical tape.
no, I'm not kidding. That's going to keep our drain from backing up from ice.
That was my next question, is that thing gonna work properly, the drain?
Are we gonna have?
Are we
heat
gonna
tape?
have the ice problem again?
How cold is it gonna be this week?
So that'll be something that we address if we don't get this project constructed by this fall. Sean, our maintenance foreman, and I are aware of the issues that we had last year with the drain freezing, so we will be up there pretty regularly to make sure that that stays open.
I thought we were gonna put a secondary drain in.
There is a secondary drain on there. Both of them froze up last year.
Huh,
So we have 0 drains.
let's put 3 of them in there and see if it freezes.
0 drains.
Okay, so we're talking about the electrical, just like what I have on my roof, the heat tape that plugs in and,
That and some lights under the roof. Right now, there's no lighting between the bowl and the roof. So the only light that comes in there is the natural light through the hatch. So this would also install some lighting in there as well.
okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last two items we had, this is number 9. Both of these are just discussion items. Number 9, we're discussing the proposed ordinance on e-bike regulations. We had a lot of discussion on this, what you see right here, the memo. And it all seemed pretty straightforward. We made a couple recommendations, asked the opinion of our police chief on how they're going to enforce this kind of thing, what the best language might be. Staff's gonna come back in probably 2 weeks, I would assume, with a first reading of an ordinance, and we can decide whether we wanna move forward with it or not. And I'd suggest anybody that wasn't in our meeting, if you have suggestions on this, go ahead and reach out to Mr. Dean.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the micro-mobility regulations? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last item tonight was a review for the draft ordinance for the amendment to section 320-19 contesting administrative citations. This was another discussion item. Mr. Kramvik brought forward a redlined ordinance change, and just wanted to know if we had any problems with it. If any of you guys do, same thing as the other item. If you have any problems with any of this stuff, please reach out to Mr. Kramvik. We didn't seem to have any issues with moving forward to streamline any of these appeals processes for any citations that might come up.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions or comments on the red line version of amending section 320 on administrative citations? Seems pretty quiet for now. Anything else?
End of report.
Thank you. Next up is 7B, Personal and Finance Committee Chair Gabe Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got 6 items on our agenda tonight. The first of which is the 2023 Fire Relief Association's annual report. The motion is to authorize staff to sign the annual reports and increasing the annual pay for year of service up to $14,000. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Johnson, a second by Stunek. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next up is a motion to approve an MOU between the City of Brainerd and U.S. Steelworkers 9230 and the IBEW Local 31. And the motion is to approve the MOUs.
I so move.
We have a motion by Johnson, a second by Terry. Any discussion? Mr. Chair.
So this is the MOUs we've updated a couple times already that have the IBEW workers working in the hydro dam. This extends it to go all the way through December 31st, 2024.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Please proceed.
Okay, the next is the new City of Brainerd organizational chart. And the motion is to approve the updated City of Brainerd organizational chart as presented and direct staff to update our employee policy manual accordingly.
Motion by Johnson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Stunek. Any discussion? Mr. Chair.
So this is more or less what we talked about in the workshop with BPU. It does not include the IT changes, because we're still looking at how that best suits us as an organization as a whole. And then a slight change is we added the finance manager, operations manager, and the water and wastewater treatment manager over at BPU. We reclassified them to not be department heads, but to be municipal utility division managers. And that's going to put, and we decided to put them on the same vacation schedule as department heads without being an official department head.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the updated City of Brainerd organizational chart, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please proceed.
All right, next up, we talked about our proposed debt levy. The finance director put together a lot of really good information. If you're interested in reviewing it, it's on page something, 155. But we talked about it, what the levy's gonna look like next year, and the debt levy is going up again a little bit next year. And we had a little bit of discussion about our capital improvement plan and our long-term street projects. And we don't think it's sustainable that we can be borrowing $2.5 million a year. So we might need to make some changes in our CIP or something. But as of right now, this is what it is. And appreciate Connie doing the work.
Thank you. Any questions on the debt levy? Please proceed.
Okay, next up was discussion on an annual budget timeline and set a workshop. And the motion is to set a budget workshop for Monday, August 28th at 6 p.m. And I so move.
I will
Motion
second.
by Johnson. Was
Second.
that a second by Terry?
It was, Mr. President.
6 p.m.
Yep.
here in council chambers?
Yep.
Any questions or comments or discussions? Conflicts?
What day?
All in
what day
favor?
is it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is that a Monday?
No.
That's fine. That's okay.
Yep. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. And finally, we have our tax increment financing report summary informational. It is information only. You can review it on page 162 in your packet or in the Brainerd Dispatch, maybe this weekend or something. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next up is item 8, unfinished business. 8A is the call for applicants. Mr. Mayor.
Well, I have returned. The mayor has the following applications available for our wonderful committees. Charter Commission, 2 terms expiring 2026, 2 terms expiring 2025. Library Board, 1 term expiring 2025. Rental License Board of Appeals, 5 terms expiring 2024. TAC, 1 term expiring 2023, as well as the Economic Development Authority, 1 term expiring 2028. Not on here, no.
Boys okay? Okay. As chair, I have 1 committee opening on the Parking Commission to expire 2026. I'm sorry, yep, 2026, and I think that's it. It's pretty sad when you don't have any like you do. Next up is item B, the final reading of proposed ordinance 1553, establishing the Country Manor Planned Unit Development District. Mr. Kramvik, you've been awful quiet.
Thank you, Mr.
Saving it up
President.
for this one, I bet.
So the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of an ordinance amendment to rezone the 3 parcels and establish a planned unit development overlay district. The plat and development stage plan was approved at the last city council meeting, as well as the first reading for this amendment was heard. So that PUD development stage plan as well as the plat is contingent upon this rezoning. So with that, staff does recommend a motion to conduct the final reading of proposed ordinance 1553 and dispense with the actual reading. Note, a vote to dispense with the actual reading of the ordinance must be unanimous. And then a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 1553, an ordinance amending section 515-2-21.d of the zoning code and the city of Brainerd zoning map.
So move.
Well, hold on there, Chief. Let's ask if anybody has any questions of our Community Development Director regarding this issue. Okay? We've got a motion to,
I rescind that now.
oh, all right. So we're looking for a motion to conduct the final. All right, we've got a motion by Chief Stunek, complicated as it was, and a second by O'Day. Any discussion on the final reading of proposed ordinance 1553? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And that passes unanimously. The next item, and I'm sorry, that motion included dispensing with the actual reading. Item 2 is the motion to adopt proposed ordinance 1553, an ordinance amending section 5152-21D of the zoning code and the city of Brainerd zoning map. Is there a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 1553?
So moved.
Motion by Stengline, is there a second?
Second.
Second by O'Day, any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Chesak.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek. Terry. Stengline.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that ordinance is adopted. Next up is item 9, new business. Item 9A is considering an interim use permit for one short-term rental at 515 South 9th Street. Community Development Director Kramvik, anything that we should know about this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So just to give a little background on this, staff does periodically review short-term rental websites, Airbnb, VRBO. Notice this property was being advertised. This one was just recently constructed, kind of late spring here, and was given a certificate of occupancy. But did notice that they were advertising as a short-term rental, so we did reach out to Mr. Stangler as a property owner, made him aware of our ordinance for short-term rentals, and he applied for an IUP for a short-term rental in one of the units at 515 South 9th Street, essentially at the next Planning Commission meeting. So with that, Planning Commission considered this request at their July 19th meeting and unanimously recommend approval of the interim use permit. Planning Commission did ask staff to reach out to the Initiative Foundation to see if there are any issues with short-term rentals related to the Dean Main Street grant, with this property did receive a grant funding from the Initiative Foundation of $60,000. I'll go into that a little bit later. But response from Don Hickman of the Initiative Foundation is there was no issues with the grant. Next thing, through the findings of fact and the rules of administration of the zoning code, staff also did recommend approval of the interim use permit for short-term rentals at 515 South 9th Street, as staff did believe Mr. Stangler met all the conditions required for approval. Prior to recommended approval of the Planning Commission, there was a motion to deny the request. It was moved and seconded by Commissioners Duval and Stangline. The motion for denial of the interim use permit request failed by a 5-2 vote. And with that and that recommendation as well as the other one, there was a lengthy discussion at the Planning Commission level. Discussion and questions concerning the short-term rental primarily focused on the need for long-term housing in the city of Brainerd, and also that this duplex was awarded funding by Dean Main Street in the amount of $60,000, as the EDA believed this property was going to be used for long-term housing, which is an important goal of the EDA as well as the comprehensive plan. Mr. Stangler did indicate that this property, and I guess his target renter for this would be extended stay residents, so not short-term rentals throughout the entire thing, but essentially longer-term leases in the amount of more 6 to 8 week leases for traveling nurses, for example, and then filling the gaps with short-term rentals. So just as a reminder to City Council, and you can ask questions of the City Attorney as well, in order to deny or approve conditional use or interim use permits, findings must be made regarding the requirements of short-term rentals listed in the zoning code and essentially for this particular property. Essentially, if there are any requirements of the short-term rental that does not meet the zoning code requirements, that would have to be stated then in the findings of fact by City Council. And with that, I'll answer any other questions that council may have, and City Attorney could answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. So the issue is a short-term rental? All right, that's simplified it. Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Kramvik? Any questions of Mr. Kramvik, Mr. O'Day, and then Mr. Chesak?
So, James, I actually did email you earlier. I meant to get it to you before, so there wasn't enough time probably for you to get back. But I didn't sit on the subcommittee that selected some of these recipients of the deed Main Street money in this house, got $60,000. My question was there any mention of anything to do with short-term rental at all anywhere in that application?
So I did reach out to Allison over at Bladeck and went kind of line by line of that application. There was nothing in the application that indicated that it was going to be used as a short-term rental.
That's all I need to know.
Mr. Chesak?
Planning and zoning, their final recommendation was 7-0, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I've got quite a few thoughts on this, actually, but my first concern was shared with some of the other council members here about the usage of this not being a actual rental, but being a short-term rental. My bigger issue with this, and James just kind of glossed over that, was that this property was actually found to be operating outside of its own license in having a short-term rental. The entire reason why we're having this discussion is because they were caught having a short-term rental. They were informed by James, can't have a short-term rental. I'm on Airbnb right now. I'm booking a stay at this place as we speak. Now, somebody tell me why we would okay a short-term rental for someone that has illegally operated it, been informed they are illegally operating it, and yet still has the property listed. And I will say this, actually has dates that are marked as already being booked. So probably currently has people staying in this as a short-term rental. Why in the world would we have regulations, allow people to operate outside those regulations, and then turn around and say, don't worry about it, not a big deal at all?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any further discussion? Any further? Tiffany Stegline?
One point that Commissioner Duval brought up that James summarized a really lengthy discussion very well, so thank you, James. But that the variance was granted for this property in part because of our comprehensive plan and our need for actual housing in our community. And so had it been done the other way around, had he come forward and said, I'm going to do a short term, the variance may not have been granted for the construction. Now time moves in one direction. But that was one point of discussion that did not get into James' very thorough summary.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So the issue before us is the interim use permit at 515 South 9th. Anybody care to take a stab at a motion? Tiffany, you're our representative. Nope. No, nothing from Tiffany, nothing from anybody. If we don't make a motion, I presume that's a denial. Okay? I'll ask a second time. Anybody wish to make a motion on this?
You said it is, if there's no motion, it is a denial.
Correct?
Okay.
Mr. Chair, do we not need a reason?
Well, I would imagine so, but since I've never in 20 years had this happen, normally we all like to make motions, but lots of them. But I'll have to ask the city attorney on that. City attorney, since I've asked twice and received no response.
So there's an application pending. So if this isn't going to be approved, nobody wants to make a motion to approve, what we're looking for then is a motion to deny with a rationale. And then we can draft findings for that rationale.
Okay, so we have to have a motion.
Yes, sir.
So for a third time, is there a motion on this issue? And we have to have a motion to deny. So we can't go further in the agenda. Unless somebody wants to do it.
I have a question.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Rationale, why do we need a rationale? And what would decidedly be enough or a rationale that's acceptable.
Well, if you deny a permit that they would otherwise have a right to, because they meet the requirements under your ordinance, then you have to provide a rationale. So that in the event of an appeal, we've got something to argue with to support the city's position.
I will motion.
Mr. Chair, please, what is your motion?
I'll motion to deny the request based on the absence of any mention of a short-term rental in the deed, Main Street application.
Okay,
There's one rationale.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Johnson. Any discussion on the motion? The motion is to deny the permit. Tiffany Stingline.
Is that sufficient rationale for,
They got $60,000 of our money.
yes, I mean, like, I understand, and like, as a human being, I understand. The city isn't sufficient.
Yeah, I know. Tiffany, anything else?
That was my question.
Okay. I believe we've got some staff guidance coming forth. We'll start with Mr. Kramvik and then Mr. Lango.
So typically within your findings, you want to look at the allowed use section for interim use permits, which is in the findings. If they don't meet any of those conditions in there, that would be a reason for denial, as well as your rules and administration for interim use permits. So it really should be based on just those factors for a denial of an interim use permit or a conditional use permit.
Thank you. Mr. Lango, anything to add?
No, that would certainly be the preference, that if you could pick something in there, as opposed to, because my understanding is that's more of a finance issue as to how the building was built. That's not really directly related to the interim use permit that's been applied for. So if we could look at the factors that are set forth in Mr. Kramvik's report, that would help.
Okay. I do know in the past, when a person their rental license lapse, when it's not in use for a year, it's gone. If it's a rental, I mean, they can reapply, but a lot of people have rental licenses that are grandfathered in. And they use it or lose it, in other words. So when this person started using it without having one, theoretically, that is, in my mind, a reason for denial, having nothing to do with the money from, which it wasn't ours, it was from the Initiative Foundation, which Don Hickman has already continued to approve, right? But this person did not follow the rules. I'm just, I know in rental licenses, at least over time, we don't, as the mayor said, we don't know how long this guy's been running a B&B. I mean,
Correct. So the proposed finding then would be that the IUP is denied based upon the fact that this property was and is at this time in violation of the city zoning ordinance in terms of its current use.
to me, that seems like an important point that the mayor brought up.
I will move to deny for that reason. Oh, I'm sorry. We're
We
still
have a
voting on the other
motion
one.
to
I'm sorry.
deny. We're going to ask for a roll call, and if you have something to add, if you're going to vote yes, you're voting in favor of the denial. Anything you can add, Mr. Kramvik's going to write down as fast as he can, or Mr. Langle. But we already have Mr. O'Day's and my own.
Nothing
So
to
if
add
you
from
vote
that.
Yes, you're voting in denial. Anybody else before I let the mayor have a second round? Mr. Mayor.
In the city, we have residents, we have businesses. And when we're talking about rental properties, it is a business within the residential district. We have a responsibility to the people that are property owners to create boundaries and restrictions that place how these people can operate. If we're not going to operate within those boundaries, the public has a right to be notified that that is happening. and we should not be rewarding people for going outside those boundaries. Now, beyond that, I would like to know if I need to cancel my reservation.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, we're going to vote. We're going to ask Administrator Bergman to call the roll. If you say yes, you're voting in favor of the denial. Mr. O'Day and myself have given you 2 reasons to choose from to deny. I've already closed the discussion. You've spoke twice. Okay, I apologize. You can question me.
I just wanted to ask and make sure that your reason for denial is also included in the motion.
I think my reason was better than Mr. O'Day's.
I agree. That's why I want to make sure.
vote on that?
Both reasons.
No. But you can pick a 3rd or 4th or 5th reason. I'd like to vote so we can get off of this, okay? I think you know how you're going to vote. Any further discussion that you think will change somebody's vote or they need to know before they vote, go ahead, Mr. O'Day, for the 3rd time.
Would it be cleaner to just amend the motion to include both rationale so that nobody has a question about what they're voting yes on?
You absolutely,
I'll amend the
yeah.
Second.
rationale.
All right, so we're going to put both of those in there.
Perfect.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask for a roll call. If you vote yes, you're voting in favor of the denial. If you have something else you'd like to add as a reason why, please do so. Administrator Bergman.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. Clarification on the motion. It is to deny the IUP, A, for the funding of the Initiative Foundation money, and B, because it was and is in violation of our ordinance. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I'm clear on the motion.
Vote to amend the motion first.
No, we've accepted the amendment by the restating of the motion, including the secondary reason from the motioner and the seconder.
Thank you for the clarification. Chesak.
Yes, for the same 2 reasons.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
Stengline.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
And Bevins.
No, and the motion passes. Next up is first reading of proposed ordinance 1554, creating Chapter 6, Sale and Use of Cannabis, and Section 1600 of the City Code, Use of Cannabis in Public Places. This is Jesse Dean. Anything you'd like to add to what's in our packet?
Just wanted to mention that the attached proposed ordinance is attempting to reflect the discussion on cannabis use in public places that's now legal as of August 1st. So staff is looking for a motion to conduct the first reading of the ordinance and call for a public hearing at the next council meeting on August 21st.
Thank you. Any questions of staff on the ordinance? Any questions?
I got one.
Yep, Mr. Johnson.
Are we married to creating chapter 16 and 1600, or could we like create chapter 420 or something?
This is more fun than naming a plow truck.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Good point. Any legitimate questions of Mr. Kramnik?
I don't know.
So here's what we're looking for. I'm sure you've all read and memorized and ready to be tested on the ordinance. We're looking for a motion to conduct the first reading of proposed ordinance 1554, an ordinance creating chapter 16/420 and section 1600/420 of the city code. Note that a vote to dispense with the actual reading must be unanimous. Is there a motion to hold the first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Stunek, second by Johnson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes unanimously. Item 2 on this issue is to call for a public hearing on August 21st at our regular meeting 2023. Is there a motion to hold that public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Johnson, is there a second? Second by O'Day. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next up is consideration requesting MnDOT to install no parking signs. Who's up for this one? Jesse Dean, anything you'd like to add to what's in our packet?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. So Trunk Highway 371 Business or South 6th Street is part of the state highway system and as such is owned and operated by MnDOT. In the portion of the corridor between Washington Street and Pine Street, there are 5 travel lanes with no shoulders or on-street parking on either side of the street. Also, there are not no parking signs present in this portion of the corridor, although there is not sufficient space for parking without impeding a through traffic lane. As part of a lawsuit against the city, one of the conditions of the settlement agreement was that the city council place on the agenda for a city council meeting to consider and vote on whether the city should approve or deny sending a request to the state for the placement of no parking signs along South 6th Street from Washington to Pine Street. The settlement agreement also acknowledges that while the city can request the state place no parking signs along South 6th Street from Washington to Pine Street, the state has the authority to determine whether to place no parking signs and the manner of placement within its right-of-way. Should the council formally request the signs, there is no requirement that would force MnDOT to agree to install the requested signage. Staff has included some options for the council to consider. 1, formally requesting MnDOT to install the no parking signs on Highway 371 Business between Washington and Pine Streets. 2, to decline the request to install the additional signage, or another alternative option per the council's direction. So staff is looking for council action on one of the options.
Any questions of our city engineer, public works director, Dean, on this issue? Tiffany Stengline.
Several meetings ago, we were talking about maybe working on a demonstration project to slow traffic through there. Is there any chance that that's going to involve putting parking in?
It's one of the options that's being discussed, but that's something that MnDOT has to vet through their different departments.
Any way we could work that into the, request that, we could park there, and that would make me happier.
You know, Tiffany, I think we should take this issue by itself because it's specifically for a lawsuit. We could paint this thing red, but we still have to make a motion on no parking signs.
I have a motion when you're ready.
Request. So I'd love to hear, I'm back to Mr. Dean, would love to hear all your other ideas. However, I'd like to keep this issue singular so we satisfy what we're required to do. There was a comment down here, Mr. Johnson.
I'm ready for a motion. If you want.
I know, I'm going to ask for comments one more time, but this is just on parking signs, not on everything to do with South 6th Street. Mr. Chesak?
Yes. May I ask Mr. Dean a question?
Yes.
Mr. Dean, currently, you had indicated a number of things that imply parking is not allowed there. Are there any statutes that prohibit parking right now?
I would defer that to Chief Davis.
Chief, do you know of any?
I can think of 3 Minnesota state statutes offhand, and one way or another would address the enforcement and prohibit the parking in a traffic lane in that such of area.
Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Chesak, you have the floor.
Yeah, we had an email from our city administrator back in March. Well, neither the city code nor state statute specifically says a citation can be issued if you park on a state highway in a traffic lane in a business district that does not have no parking signs. So you're telling me there are statutes that say we can't enforce?
If, I believe you might be referring to a statute that addresses parking outside of a business district. And I think that statute was specific to what you cannot do outside the business district, but wasn't necessarily saying everything you could do, such as parking within a business district.
I think we're not talking on the same. It says there are no statutes in our city code. There's no code or statutes that prohibit a vehicle from parking in this area. That's specifically about this area that this email came from.
City code, you are correct. I'm making reference to state statute.
Yeah, and that's what it says here. There are currently no statutes or nothing in city code.
Well,
That specifically says a citation can be issued when in a traffic lane on a state highway in a business district where there are no parking signs. So is our city administrator wrong when she said that?
Well, alls I can speak to is 3 statutes that in one way or another does address instances such as this.
Well, this email specifically mentioned those statutes.
State
Okay.
statute's different than city code.
I don't understand that, but there's 2 things. I mean, this email also included those statutes you're referring to. And so that's why it's so, you're saying that you can cite somebody that under these statutes, and at the same time, these statutes don't allow, they allow people to park there. That's why I'm having trouble with this. The statutes that you're referring to allow a car to park on South Sixth Street between this area indicated. So
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Lango.
we're getting off track here.
It seems like it a little bit, but usually when I try and get us back on track, then I get,
well, I'm talking about issuing no parking signs, and I just want to point out that if you ask the state to issue no parking signs, it clears this up. We're no longer looking at any potential liability from somebody suing the city if they park there and get cited. And their chief is saying you can cite somebody, but the statutes don't allow for that to happen. They allow people to park on the street. These statutes do, in that area. And that's the whole point of this. The statutes allow vehicles to park there. Is there a statute, Mr. Chief, that says you can't park in a traffic lane?
Yes, I believe that would be addressed in 2 specific statutes, which I would quote if anyone would.
Oh, I've looked through this pretty in depth, as you all know. You saw my email.
do you have the numbers, chief?
Yes, I do. Yep. One of them would be State Statute 169.34, Subdivision 1, 15D. And if I may, this one addresses it simply by no person shall stop or park a vehicle on a street or highway when directed or ordered to proceed by any peace officer invested by law with the authority to direct, control, or regulate traffic. So this is one statute in an instance where if someone was parked there in the traffic lane, a law enforcement officer, it's real clear that they can direct them to move, and to not do so would be in violation of the statute.
Well, yes, but that's, once they park there, they'd have to be told to move, and then if they don't move, they're cited, according to that.
Correct.
So, Mr. Chesak, just to summarize this discussion and get us back on track, you're supporting sending a request to MnDOT?
I'm just clarifying here, right now.
I think we
that
got it the first time
These statutes.
and the second time.
Okay.
All right? Thank you. Anybody else have a question of staff on what the issue is? Mr. Langle, anything you want to add?
No, sir.
Thank you. We're looking for a motion either from Mr. Johnson, either to make the request or deny the
I
request.
move that we decline to request any additional signage from MnDOT at this time.
Is there a second? Second by O'Day. Now, any discussion? Mr. O'Day,
I was going to ask a question of staff. I don't know if I still can.
you can.
Is there not a citation that the Brainerd Police can issue for disrupting the normal flow of traffic?
Yes, I believe the careless driving statute would be applicable in this situation.
I'll just say, in my opinion, driving on there, since they've widened the sidewalk, there is absolutely no indication that it's a good place to park. So if somebody were to park there,
Mr. O'Day, Mr. Chesak, Chief Davis, are you three available at some other time to argue the merits of state statute?
no.
Okay, then let's stop doing it now. You tell me if you're in favor and why, or if you're not in favor and why, and then I'm going to end discussion.
I was going to, but I'm not going to now.
Thank goodness. I think we know how you're going to vote anyway, not to be.
May I?
Mr. Johnson, goodness peaches, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to.
You wanna
I'd like
debate
to
the-
speak to the motion.
Oh, good God,
I have no questions on any state laws or anything. I think We agreed that we would discuss this. We are having a very robust discussion, but I think in the end, we do not want no parking signs up and down 6th Street, nor would we want them in Washington Street in a couple years when that project is done. They'd just be unsightly and redundant, because obviously you cannot park in a traffic lane. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. Any further comments on the motion? Discussions available all day, every day. Hearing none, the motion is to deny the request and not send anything to MnDOT regarding parking on South 6th Street. Let's ask for a roll call.
Chesak.
No.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
Stengline.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, the motion passes 6-1. Let's move on to consideration of revised rules of decorum and council procedures. Administrator Bergman, anything you want to add to what's in our packet?
I'll be brief. So the city council held the workshop on June 26th to discuss the council procedures and the rules of decorum. And in your packet are the revised rules of decorum, council procedures based on that discussion. In the memo, I did list out the items that were changed, as well as there is a redlined copy of the updated rules of decorum. I would be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions of staff on what's before us?
Mr. President?
Yeah, Mr. Chesak.
I think we should add one thing here. At our workshop, it was brought up at the end of that about being notified of any lawsuits filed against the city. And this is, the reason that this is important is because our administration is not required to notify us when the league is given we're cited with a lawsuit, okay? And so based on that, our administrator does notify us, as she has said to me. Now, the issue I had is if she's doing that, the next administrator may not do that. And to put a simple line in there, something to the effect like, council will be notified as soon as possible when city is, lawsuit is filed against the city. That would be, as you remember, the meeting was a workshop regarding our expectations of staff and then procedurally things we do here and so forth. And so I just thought, add that line and then it's cleared up. And then if the day comes where Jennifer is not our administrator, we can count on that to occur, as you stated yourself at that meeting, Mr. Bevins. Should we be notified if there's a lawsuit? You said yes. And I agree. And I agree.
So does Administrator Bergman.
So would that be okay if we add that to the
Administrator
document?
Bergman?
Absolutely, I can put that in there as well.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're looking for a motion to.
So moved.
So moved with the change brought up by Mr. Chesak. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Johnson. Any discussion on the changed rules of decorum? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 10, public forum. Our IT director, is anybody online? All right, so this is the time where I open the public forum at 8:22 and ask if anybody in the audience wishes to speak on something that's not been discussed this evening. We usually ask you to keep it to 3 to 5 minutes. Anybody at all? And a third time. It is now 8:23. We will close the public forum and go to staff reports. We'll start with Chris Schubert, our HR director.
The only thing I want to add to my report is to wish James Kramvak a very happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Jim Thoreen used to sing.
You don't want me to. Leave it at that.
Well, wait a minute.
That is a very gentle hint. All right. Anything else, Chris? Fire Chief Holmes.
Nothing to add, thank you.
All right, Attorney Langle?
Nothing here, thank you.
Are we on track? All right. James Kramvik, birthday boy.
So just one thing to update here. So, Planning Commission is getting closer here to bringing an ordinance or a finalized ordinance for the parking. A few of the things that they've been working on is creating parking maximums in all non-residential zoning districts. Also potentially creating a parking minimum requirement for our downtown residential districts, especially for new construction properties. Also, one of the big ones is creating kind of a tiered approach for our multifamily. So each one-bedroom studio, they're not looked at in the same light for the required off-street parking spots required. Also regulating parking on unimproved surfaces in the rear yard, looking at that through outdoor storage and screening. And then the last thing that was added as well as would be trailers that are parked off-street would have to be secured essentially at all times as long as they're unattended. So Parking Commission is working through that and Planning Commission as well and getting close to a final ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Mr. Dean, City Engineer, Public Works Director.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I have just a few updates really quick. So the Harrison Safe Routes project has mainly been completed. The material delays on the RFB signage will cause those signs not to get installed until this fall. However, the street's been reopened to through traffic. The trees that were part of the school's CUP are not in the project, but they are accounted for separately in the same work as the new parks trees. Staff informed Doucette's that we did not want the trees to be planted prior to the project being completed. So right now the trees will be likely planted this fall when the weather is more favorable. Staff also did view that the trees adjacent to the Cuyuna Lakes Trail in the NP Center have been planted as well. North Brainerd reconstruction project continues to progress well, and the contractor is beginning road building on the third and final phase. This week, we should expect to see new curb and gravel base placed, but it's really expected the project should be wrapped up by the end of August. One item that will remain into the fall is the final turf establishment. Due to the drought conditions that we've experienced this summer, the planted grass seed on phases 1 and 2 have so far failed, and the contractor will be expected to return to perform some corrective work to address that. The contract will be held open until that's completed and establishment is acceptable. And then finally, the 6th and Willow Street intersection project did just kick off with SEH. The consultant sent out letters to adjacent property owners in the project area, letting them know that surveyors would be out this week collecting information for the upcoming project. We have also begun the process of identifying our key stakeholders on the project to start engaging with them early in the process and collect input. We want to ensure that we're addressing those concerns early in the process rather than after the fact. At this time, staff is looking for some guidance from the council. As part of the scope of the engineering contract, SEH has 2 public input meetings, 2 council presentations through the preliminary and design phases to collect comments and input. Does the council want to assign 1 or 2 council members to participate in PMT meetings, or would the meetings currently scoped be sufficient for the council to provide input on?
Is that something you're looking for us to answer right now? We normally
As we're moving forward, I'd like to know if the council wants to assign a couple members to a PMT, or if just the 4 different public meetings would be sufficient to provide input.
Dave Pritchett would love to serve on that PMT.
Pritchett, for sure.
Well, you ran for office.
And Gary Sheeler? Does anybody want to serve on the PMT and go to 4 project meetings? I do think it's worked well in the past to have council members part of it.
So the PMTs would be separate from those public meetings.
Yep.
So we'll still have those 4 public input meetings as well.
Oh, okay.
How many PMT meetings are you planning?
Maybe roughly 1 a month or so, depending on what the progress is of the project. As things get a little bit closer, it might be more often than that, depending on what's going on.
I would do it, Mr. President.
Okay, we've got a volunteer from Mr. Chesak. Is there a second volunteer?
I'll do it.
And Tiffany Sangline. So there you go.
We need 3.
2 is enough?
2
Oh,
should be
wait.
enough.
Do we have a problem
we're
because
on
we're
the same committee, yeah.
Never mind, I will withdraw.
Yeah. Mayor said he'd
Yep.
do it.
Mayor has been informed that he needs to be at home more.
Do it, Mr.
Thank you. Kara Terry and Jeff Chesak. Anything else, Mr. Dean?
No, sir.
All right, Finance Director Hillman. IT GIS Director Strong.
Nothing to report?
And, yeah, would anybody mind if I ask Mr. Strong a question?
Yeah.
You would mind? No. Okay. Well, no, I don't know if you know the answer to this, because I don't know that you heard the question, but a question came up from our Public Utilities, Todd, that IT for them is different than IT for the rest of the city of Brainerd. Has that ever been brought? I thought that might be strange, but maybe not. That's a question I'd sure like to hear, because
Are computers different in West Brainerd? Oh, excuse me, Baxter.
Baxter, naturally. It'd certainly be something that would be nice to have a follow-up, because I think, as Mr. Johnson alluded to when we discussed the org chart, it seemed like that there was some conflict there. I asked that, and I'll just throw it out there as a public question and see if maybe sometime in the future you could. I have no idea what they were talking about.
That's a really big question, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It might be unanswerable. Chief?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize our department's drug investigator and the task force he's assigned to for the significant enforcement action they took last week. You're probably aware from the press release that we had a residence in Northeast Brainerd that was selling fentanyl pills, upwards of 15,000 of them. And kind of put that in a little bit of context, statistically speaking, from the federal government, of those pills, about 9,000 of them individually probably contained a lethal dose of fentanyl. And that's a lot of lethal doses out in the community, and that was just one bus, not to speak for all the other shipments that were in and out of there. And knowing firsthand the complexity of this investigation, I can very much appreciate their efforts, and knowing that it involves several surrounding counties and also multiple states. And, you know, adult use cannabis has been a big conversation and a time commitment for our staff, but just to reassure you that the opioid epidemic still is first and foremost what we're paying most attention to with the controlled substance crimes. But I wanted to recognize them because they did a really good job.
Thank you, Chief, and thanks for the good news. Mr. Airbrother.
Thank you. Just a couple quick updates. Had the opportunity with some EDA members to visit Dragon Forge and Fancy Pants Chocolate with the DDBC. I just love that they're doing those, and really a good chance to really get in and visit and learn more about our downtown businesses. This morning, James, Jesse, and I, along with Eric Charpentier, a few others, were on a bus tour with the counselors of Real Estate Group, who are in town this week. I know a couple of you are interviewing with them tomorrow. I'm sure they have slots open if that's something you would be interested in. What they will be doing Thursday night is presenting their findings, and really what they're looking at is, are there opportunities in Brainerd where we can expand housing opportunities. Wednesday morning, the mayor and I will be attending the annual Mayor's Prayer Breakfast at Grandview, so looking forward to that. And then last but not least, the platform is new, so hopefully if you have questions, please let us know. If there's any comments you have, please let us know. Mention that Tony will be sending the packet out in a PDF, but our hope is ultimately to go all online with this, so please let us know any feedback. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Bedot.
1, yay trees. 2, yay prayer breakfast. That's going to be fun. I missed it last year. And then lastly, just given some of the stuff that happened tonight, I'm wondering if there's any way that we can investigate what it means when someone steps outside the licenses that they are given within the city of Brainerd, specifically with our rentals. To me, the agreement that we have between the private renters and the public should be something that we hold to be the most prestige in Brainerd. If we're going to have people that are operating businesses that are in the business of housing individuals, we have to hold that to a very high standard. And I'm just wondering what the repercussions of some of this stuff is. Because I'm looking right now on Airbnb, and there's a handful of them, and I I know that we have a handful that have passed, but I also don't believe that we have all of these that have passed. And so what happens when these individuals get involved in these things that they're not supposed to be doing? Because especially if they have a renter's license. If you hold a renter's license in the city of Brainerd and you're stepping outside of that, what are the repercussions to that, and what are the steps that the city can take in order to ensure that those things are not happening? So I just ask that maybe we move that into a discussion later on.
Thank you. We are moving on to number 13, council committee reports. We'll start with Tiffany Stengline.
Well, it was the 50th anniversary for the Region 5 Development Commission this past week, and so it was good to meet not only, the other current commissioners, but a lot of our historical ones. I sat with Lucy Nesham for part of the event, former alderman. So, yay, 50 years. And then I guess the only other thing that I wanted to do was thank everybody who reached out regarding the micromobility issue, because I was clueless on what needed to happen. So thank you to the public who either watched us on YouTube or on cable or read it in the Dispatch and followed up by giving feedback, because I needed it.
Thank you. Kara Terry?
Nothing to report.
Chief Stunek?
Street Fest was fun last Saturday.
Wow, no kidding. Jeff Cheswick?
One thing for Mr. Kramvik. Here's a birthday song. It's not too long. Hey.
New Jim Thury.
There we go.
I hope you got that for YouTube.
Thank you, Mike O'Day and Gabe Johnson.
Yeah, about a year ago, I volunteered to serve on the Kitchigami Regional Library Board, and making it to these Thursday night meetings up in Pine River has proven to be more challenging than I thought. So I will be, and I regret to inform you, I will be submitting my letter of resignation to the Kitchigami Board, but I promise I will find a suitable replacement. I will work with the mayor to get a replacement in place, hopefully this month.
Wonder if I could get there any easier.
Take the bus.
Ooh, dirty.
And as chairman, I have visited last Tuesday the Northside Residents Picnic. That's about 30 years of those things in Gregory Park. Always a lot of fun, a little bit of rain, a little bit of power loss in the park. All these things went well. Jesse Dean mentioned the Northside Road construction. That's 100 days where they will not let me help. I'm just bummed. I keep trying.
Looking for an assistant to measure snow.
Yeah, they won't let me get anywhere near that equipment, chief. I also went to Fancy Pants Chocolate, Dragon Forge Games, and last Wednesday was the Parlor Business Owners Meeting, which was really a lot of fun. I'll be at Counselor's Realty tomorrow at 11 o'clock, right downstairs. And in case you were wondering, my cookies took a blue ribbon at the county fair, and I'll be bringing samples in soon. Blue ribbon cookies. I won't tell you what the rest of the things I submitted did, because they don't have ribbons for that.
I was surprised that there were a lot of marijuana plants, or cannabis plants, that were making their way around the county fair that appeared to be older than one day. So.
Lots of good fertilizer. Okay, we're looking for
A motion to adjourn by me.
second by
Second.
Stengline. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. We are done. Jeff can stay.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye, Kevin.